This thing could wake the dead, honestly.
Yeah, it really could.
Alright guys, just made it here to the park. Joe's gonna walk us through the truck setup and what's going on with Maxine. So this is my brother Joe.
Hey guys.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the paint and wheel and tire setup, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. So as you can see, the paint's all original. Nice baby blue. Haven't done much to it. It's sat outside for a few years, and being in Ohio kind of got tore up, but that's all right. Adds the character, right? 235, 75, 15 on the tires, original rims. Missing the beauty rings on them, but I'm gonna spray them out eventually.
And you're not 100% sure if this is the setup you're gonna keep forever. You might do a wider wheel combo,
exactly,
or something like that. Maybe something to give you a more aggressive stance. So yeah, for now it'll work. It's brand new rubber on the road, so that's all that matters.
Free rubber, not to mention, thanks to my dad at Diamond Tires.
That's right. Pops hooked the tire game up, always does.
Yeah. Original leaf springs, front end didn't have any work done to it, still have the original upper and lower control arms.
Yeah, we'll check out the leaf springs in the back, but you do have some upgrades on the suspension. Now, what'd you do with that?
So just put a little upgraded shocks on those. The original ones were blown, of course, from the
yeah, of course.
But it does actually have a tow package, so it's rated for, I think, 250 pounds heavier than what stock is, and the gear ratio is 308, believe it or not.
So it's got 308 gears in the back
instead of the 272s.
And we'll kind of talk about that too when we talk about powertrain. But yeah, here's some new shocks, and you can see some nice shiny boys back there. We'll talk about that too. In an 85, I mean, the paint is what it is. Obviously there's some blemishes and stuff like that, but it comes with the territory having a 35-year-old truck.
Oh yeah.
Bodywork is one of those things where it's the most tedious and arguably the most expensive part of a project. Let's jump right into the powertrain. Why don't you pop the hood on this bad girl and see what we got going on. Now look at this.
So she's a dirty block. Again, it's sat, but courtesy of Summit Racing, it's a 350 cubic inch, 5.7 liter V8.
So it's the 5.7.
Yep.
Nice.
It puts out a shy 315 horsepower, we'll call it.
And what did you do to it to kind of get it to that number? What do we got going on here?
So we have some long tube stainless steel headers, a nice aggressive intake on top. It's an Avenger intake with a 600 Holley carb.
So this intake is a Avenger intake?
It is.
And that's a 600 Holley carb?
Indeed, single pump.
Underneath our Edelbrock cleaner.
Mm-hmm. Other than that, that's about it.
And what kind of long tubes are these? Just stainless steel?
Just stainless steel.
Are they any type of brand, or are they just kind of just aftermarket stainless steel?
Rock Auto, baby.
Nice. And they cost you what, about 120 bucks?
Yeah, 120.
Not bad. Not bad for some bolt-on horsepower.
No, not at all. I'm super pleased. It gives it a nice, real aggressive sound.
Yeah, we heard that in the cold start. You did get a new radiator, right?
Oh, you're right, I did.
Radiator's new.
New intercooler too, as you can see in there.
So yeah, that's a trans cooler, right?
It is.
Right,
yes.
Which is an upgrade from stock. They didn't have those.
Nope, they were not available on the 85. I rebuilt the transmission. It's a 350 turbo hydro. I tore the old one up to shreds.
Well, let's talk about what was originally sitting in this bay and how it got to the point where we needed to rebuild it.
So we had a fat pig of a 305 in here. Didn't have any horsepower. It was a quadrajet. Same transmission still, but didn't really have many upgrades. For what it wasn't bad, but One night I was driving it and blew the quadrojet up, thought I blew ahead, and just replaced the whole motor.
Right, and that was in what, about 2010, 2011 it was replaced?
Yep, I would say so. And when we changed the engine out, we did not touch the transmission at that time.
Right, so we just made it worse.
Yeah. A little bit.
A 14 and a 16-year-old with a 350.
Yeah,
you get a little squirrely.
Yeah, the old man was mad about the tire situation back then. Was not pleased.
So a couple more upgrades to this engine. Obviously, it's had a huge tune-up. So we have new plugs, new wires, a new fuel pump and fuel filter. Now, is this a pump and a filter?
No, that's just an oversized filter.
That's just the filter.
Yep.
The pump isn't on the tank on these. It's an inline pump, right?
Exactly, and it's a mechanical pump on top of that, as you can see here. So
so it's there. That is the fuel pump. And as you can tell, brand spanking new.
Oh yeah.
New lines too coming off. Some new lines coming off of there.
We had some fuel problems after some lines dry rotted.
Of course. Distributor. Did you have to replace the distributor?
No.
Because that was new when you had first done it. So what? Maybe just clean the points off and it was good to go.
That's pretty much it.
Cool.
And the block itself has less than 30,000 miles on it still.
Less than 30 on the block. That's awesome.
Which is hard to tell with all the rust, but.
Right. Well, I kind of talked about that's just valve cover. It's one of those things where it's like when you're working with a budget, right? And because you had to set a budget for yourself.
I did, yes.
When you're working for a budget, it's about getting it on the road.
Exactly.
And rusty valve covers isn't something that's going to stop it from getting on the road, but it's something that's easy to replace or pull off and spray with some high temp paint and call it a day.
Exactly.
So, keep that in mind, folks, when you're doing a rebuild or you have a toy yourself. Spend the money where it's important just to get it going and have some fun with it, and then work on those things as you go. Brake lines. All new brake lines too, right?
Nickel copper brake lines. So I don't
Not from here, but when they come down here and attach down under the frame, that's where they're replaced, right? Because these are in good shape.
They are.
And the master cylinder is in good shape. It's got a little surface rust, but it is what it is. You also had some power steering lines replaced here. As you can see, there's a new power steering line there.
And a new pump.
And a new power steering pump.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. And let me tell you, folks, no power steering in this thing. Good luck parking it.
I remember driving it without power steering, and it is literally like swimming in cement is what it feels like.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not going anywhere quick.
So let's talk about what's going on after our long tube headers.
Chris at Midas and Perry, across from the Wake Auto Mile.
Perry, Ohio.
He is the best in Stark County for custom work. He ran me 95 inches of 2.5 inch pipe coming right out the back. He crossed them over, which is interesting. So the driver's side is actually passenger and vice versa.
Right, so we'll try and get a good shot here. As you can see, now the pipes do cross. They are not an X pipe. They are true dual exhaust system, but they just cross paths.
Exactly.
Which, is interesting and honestly gives it quite an interesting sound.
It does.
Even though it's not actually X'd, like connected, it does give it definitely a different sound than just a straight back dual.
Exactly.
Or true dual, I should say.
And from what he told me, the extra bends in the pipe helped create that sound. And I found some U-Power dual tips, 2.5 in, 3.5 out on Amazon for the pair, $80. Couldn't beat it.
$80 for the pair for exhaust tips is
unbeatable.
Oh yeah, and they kind of have that, I don't know, what'd you call that, like
burn.
Yeah, on the tips.
Yeah.
So they do shine up real nice. The truck's a little dirty. It's Ohio and it's the beginning of November, so.
I put 500 miles on it the first week I had it too. So.
Right. Now the bed is actually in really good shape.
Indeed, and if I pull the cover up, the floor of it's
look at this, guys. And this is how the floor looks in the whole bed. This rubber cover that was in it since we got it. Is really protected the bed, and honestly even all the corners and stuff you can see, and on the other side, the bed is in really good shape. And a lot of the times, the bed is one of the first things to rust out.
Yep, you get the moisture and wet sitting in there, and it doesn't drain, and well, water and metal don't mix.
That's right. Now the rockers aren't in terrible shape, but that's something that we can buy off of Rock Auto or a million other sites, and they can be cut out and welded in.
Which is the plan for this upcoming summer, with a few other modifications. Got to do a valve seal replacement and a cam upgrade next year.
Nice. I like that. Some future ideas for it. Yeah. Now, if someone wanted to do this, right, and we can talk rough estimate. You know, we had fuel lines, brake lines, power steering pump, long tube headers, full custom exhaust, a carb rebuild, radiator, intercooler, fuel pump, fuel filter. What would something like this, what is a ballpark number that could get someone into an engine like this?
Well, I'm gonna get my mechanic in a little bit of trouble here, but I had an awesome mechanic, and he really helped me out on the labor part. So
right,
for the whole project, my budget was $4,000, and I ended up going over, so it was $4,400 altogether. Any other shop with the amount of work he put into it, anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000. But overall, I can't complain.
Right. And I'm not talking, folks, just so you know, I'm not talking like buying the block. Obviously, that is a whole nother cost in itself. Yes. Buying the block, buying the intake, those were separate costs. But to take a Chevy small block 350 and kind of slap some of these parts on there, is going to cost with labor, and depending on where you go, $4,000 or more.
Yeah.
And it's the little things, right, that add up. So a $350 exhaust. Yeah. Oh, by the way, just to kind of flash back to the exhaust, what are the mufflers on there? Because I'm sure people are going to ask, because of the sound, what actually it's running through. So we just have some stainless steel long tubes that are true duals into what kind of mufflers?
So they are an off-brand of Flowmaster thrushpack.
Okay.
Single chamber, and he tucked them up there very nice. But I even have 2 of those as well for the dual exhaust.
And I'll try and get another shot of those, because actually, honestly, like for a custom exhaust system, he took a lot of pride in it, and it turned out really nice.
Yeah, he did an excellent job. His welds were spot on. He didn't leave a big mess.
What would you say that someone needs to know about wanting to purchase or own a truck like this that maybe they might not know about before they get into it?
Just some tender loving care, guys. You know, make sure you maintain the engine as much as you can, even if you let it sit. This thing sat for 3 years without it starting. We put a fresh battery in it, cleaned the carburetor, and it fired right up. So just trying to keep it out of the weather.
Some TLC.
Yeah, that's
checking the fluids.
Pretty much it.
Now, the Chevy small blocks, these 350s are obviously tried and true, great engines.
They're bulletproof.
Right, exactly. And people can do you can do a lot to them without damaging them, but you know, always checking the fluids, because you know they could tend to leak, or you know, just taking a little bit of time to run through it, changing your oil when you need to change your oil, making sure that there's coolant in it, you know, those kinds of things. So overall, just you know, checking your plugs to see if they're fouled at all, stuff like that. So really basic stuff. And as you can see, guys, I mean, hell, you could sit in the engine bay and work on it. I mean, the thing is so big, and I can just reach right down in there and pull the plugs and pull a spark plug with an extender if I need to. Hell, I don't even need an extender. But would you say parts are relatively cheap for it?
You know, compared to some of the other vehicles on the market, super cheap.
Right.
I mean, even the carburetor rebuild was less than $100. I mean, the headers alone were less than $130.
The headers were less to buy than they were to install. Okay.
Yeah, seriously.
And like, we could have done it yourself, but it was already in the shop, and you know, so on and so forth.
Yes.
One thing we might have comments about or talk about is there is no heater core, and yes, it does get a little chilly.
Yes, being in Ohio in November. The reason for that is that the heater core actually blew, and at the time it blew, I just didn't have the time or money to replace it.
Right.
So,
and again, those are things that you can go without to get it on the road and have some fun.
Exactly.
So wrapping it up here, Joe, thanks for showing us the C10.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is the custom deluxe. So I mean, in today's standards, this would have been one of the hottest trucks to roll off the line in '85. It has all the chrome trim around the wheel wells, around the windows, the chrome mirrors, the chrome bumper.
My family's the second owner.
Second owner, yep. It's a 2-owner truck, including us. So
with a clean title.
With a clean title, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, thanks for coming on. Check It, Don't Wreck It. We're gonna take it for a little ride, and as always, hope we don't wreck it.
Yeah. Are not happy. Not happy at all.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks for having me.
For sure, man. If you like the video, obviously like and subscribe. But until then, check it, don't wreck it.